VikesNow, let's do this. Dustin Baker, the September 27th edition. I'm not heading to London. I'm doing the Miami trip instead. But the Vikings head to London on Sunday. Make sure you get up early, 8:30 a.m. Central Time, I believe. But we're going to do our final episode digesting the almost must-win game against the Detroit Lions from Week 3. Again, to recap, the Vikings won 28-24 thanks to a game-winning touchdown from KJ Osborne. The team goes to 2-1, and thanks to some advantageous tiebreakers, they are atop the NFC North, at least for a while. And I want to go through the 8 surprises in my mind from that game, and then we'll put Detroit to bed finally and move on to, I guess, probably a dual platter tomorrow with Josh Fry. We'll get his take from Detroit, but then spend the rest of the week on the Saints as Week 4 is upon us. So in no particular order, I have 8 things that are noteworthy, that are quasi-surprising, that came out of the Lions game. And these are generally, I don't know if I'd say high level, but they're not too crazy statistical like I sometimes get. You'll have to forgive me. But let's start. So the first one is the sweet and salty mix. That is Irv Smith Jr., your TE1 for the Vikings. This man is in a contract year, and he is in the 4th installment of a forecasted breakout season that has yet to arrive. And I believe that you must start accepting the fate that the sweet and salty mix is what you're going to get. Of course, this man is young. I believe he's 24 or 25, and he could still blossom into something that is just fantabulous. But I believe some of this sweet and salty stuff that we're getting from Irv Smith Jr., this is the way it's going to be. And it's probably why in 2019 and 2020, he didn't firmly take the job away from Kyle Rudolph and make it his own. He had a pretty sweet first down sliding catch. That was a big deal, kind of like the touchdown against the Eagles, but then some of those positives are negated by drops. Now, I don't know if the drops are a byproduct of the thumb that he nursed back to health this summer, but I think that after seeing this in back-to-back weeks in crucial moments of games where the ball just couldn't catch it for Irv Smith Jr., he's probably just a decent tight end and is not going to become Darren Waller. Get that out in the open. Of course, I hope that I'm wrong and he comes out Sunday and has 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, but I doubt it. And it doesn't help him that this brand of Vikings under Kevin O'Connell prefers a hodgepodge of tight ends. You might look up on your television and see Johnny Munt or Ben Elfson rumbling down the field for some pretty sweet first downs and yards after catch. But due to the targets that are allotted to him and then what he does when he gets the targets, I don't think Irv Smith is going to be as good as we thought. So that's number 1, the sweet and salty mixed bag of Irv Smith Jr. Number 2 is Garrett Bradbury. Bada bing, he's holding up. Who'da thunk it? We spent a lot of the show during the spring and summer talking about what kind of contingency plan should they have. Is Chris Reed ready when Bradbury inevitably sucks? Austin Schlottman, he had a great preseason game, and he's going to be the next big deal. I think we said all of those things, me included, but those may not be needed. Now, Bradbury is not a Pro Bowler, I don't think, but he's holding up. His 69.8, damn near 70 PFF grade, unsurprisingly, is heavy on the run blocking and average with pass protection, but that's kind of what you've asked for since the Bradbury experiment went southward, is that, well, just have him not be a parking cone. And through 3 games, he's actually been pretty good. PFF mentioned that he's the 6th best center in the NFL right now. I don't know if that'll hold because I'm not completely sold. I know too much about him. But a early season takeaway, and against the Lions especially, is that Garrett Bradbury is not the old Garrett Bradbury. He is passable. His production is serviceable. You don't have to have crazy anxiety like you did starting in the 2019 season when they used a first-round pick to draft him. And I will always say that if you use that high of a pick on a center, the guy better be a Pro Bowler and he better be on your team for 10 to 12 years. Bradbury's not there, but he also isn't horrendous any longer. And that's big news, because if he is decent, the rest of the guys are actually good, and that's that works. We'll take it. We're not going to get greedy. We just want to get out of the damn basement from all of this 27th worst or 27th ranked pass protection in the league bullshit that's been going on forever. Plain and simple, since Zimmer took over the offensive line, pass protection. Run blocking is usually fine. Pass protection was never any good. It was average in 2017. What did they do that year? Went to the NFC Championship. But Bradbury doesn't feel like the weak link, complete weak link on the offensive line, and that's big news. And it was, once again, on display against the Lions. Number 3 is that there's this weird paradox going on where I don't think any of you guys or gals watching this show thinks the Vikings defense is good right now. However, it has allowed 0 points in the fourth quarters of games. And Packers game was meaningful. The Eagles just kind of went to bed and played Zimmer ball last Monday. And then this game, of course, was ultra meaningful in an absolute roller coaster of a matchup. The Lions didn't score in the fourth quarter. And not allowing points in the fourth quarter is a humongous deal for the Vikings because in the last 2 seasons, this is when they melt down, when the game's on the line, or heading into the third quarter, ending the second quarter, they would collapse. You knew it. You saw it virtually every Sunday. That's not happening anymore, at least yet. So you have this defense that's giving up chunk plays. I think I tweeted yesterday that they rank second to last in the NFL for 15-plus yard plays allowed. Only the Cardinals have allowed more of those chunky 15-yard plays. So that's not very good. And I'll say it again, when you're watching it on TV or you're there in the stadium, you feel that, all right, this guy's going for 18 yards. And then when a ball carrier is handed the ball, like a running back, you're doing, celebrations when he only gets 5 yards. That's not normal. That's not a good defense. You're not going to win a Super Bowl that way. However, while they're gaining their footing, they're learning Ed Donatel, and he's learning them, adjusting to a 3-4 defense. They're showing up when it matters. So it's very, very strange that I consider this defense not good, but then here it is allowing 0 points in the fourth quarters of games. To a degree, we'll take it, but I think you can have both based on the personnel that the Vikings employ on defense. I think there's a pathway for these guys to gel and get better, because right now, defense is not very good, but it is clutch. So that's our burden right now through September. Maybe it'll change in October. Number 4 is the quiet nature of Justin Jefferson. I didn't think that he would be a footnote to this Lions game. It was really cool that they won without him being the tyrant that he can be. But for 2 games now, he's tabulated the lowest 2-game total of his career. Now, he was double-teamed most of the time. There's some Bleacher Report, I don't know if Bleacher Report, CBS Sports, are trying to say that Jeff Okudah locked Justin Jefferson down. It's like, that's cute. I get it. You got to prop your guy up, but Jefferson was double teamed, so you need 2 dudes to put the clamps on him. But a quiet Justin Jefferson is not what the doctor ordered, especially after week 1 when he had 174 receiving yards. You were talking about a 3,000-yard season. Well, now it's like he has like the 11th or 12th most receiving yards in the business. So he's got a lot of work to go to fulfill any of these 2,000 yards prophecies. And all we want back is just the normal guy who gets, 1,400, 1,500 yards, because it's been a disappearing act in the last 2 weeks thanks to how teams have schemed him. So I think a large surprise is the Vikings won, but Jefferson was not a factor for producing yards or touchdowns. He was like a decoy. So we have to get used to that when teams decide we're going to just take him away and you guys can throw it to KJ and Mr. Thielen and see how you do. Well, it worked against Detroit. On that note, there was a surprising Adam Thielen resurgence. The only reason I call it surprising is because we weren't sure. We were pretty confident that he was still a good wide receiver. Well, lo and behold, the team decided to target him once again, and no, he is not washed up. He may not be as good as he was in 2018 when Cousins targeted him like a madman. But the game that you wanted to see, especially if you're a Thielen fan, happened. He made an impact, and especially when they doubled Jefferson, he was open for the most part and did his damage. So you don't have to write an obituary on Thielen after 2 games where he wasn't targeted very much. And there was some folks that were like, yeah, I don't know, maybe he's hit the wall. And Thielen said himself he had to figure it out and get open, look in the mirror, yada yada. But that was premature. He is not old all of a sudden. He doesn't suck. It's just a weird situation in week 1 where they didn't need him because Jefferson was open all damn day. And then week 2, the whole game plan, the whole experience was terrible. But now we're back on equal footing. Thielen is Thielen, and the Vikings beat the Lions because Thielen was Thielen. Got 3 more for you. This one might be the biggest when you take a step back and you take a little time machine back to April, is that Lewis Cine is completely MIA on defense. That doesn't mean that he's getting out there and whiffing and horrible and he's a bust. It's that he's not playing. They're only using him on special teams. To date, in his rookie season, he's played 1 snap on defense, and that was at the end of the Eagles game. Heading into week 3 against the Lions, Harrison Smith was hurt. He was in the concussion protocol. So the working theory was that Josh Metellus and Cine would split the duty. It was even advertised as such by Tom Pelissero from NFL Network. They're going to split snaps. They did not. Josh Metellus had a damn good game. I think his PFF score was 82.7, and Cine didn't see the field. Now, you don't have to panic and, I can't believe we traded with the Lions and got some guy who never plays, because it's only week 3 of the guy's rookie career. However, if you want to get a peek at your first-round pick and you're not going to start him coming out of the preseason, when the guy goes down who he's supposed to replace, that would be Harrison Smith, this was the natural, logical, inherent time where you'd get a peek at Lewis Cine at safety on defense. No cigar. This has to mean that he's not ready yet. He's not on any injury report. Either that or Metellus is this budding superstar that nobody thought about, and I don't think that's the case. So, curiously, concerningly, Lewis Cine has not seen the field on defense, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So that leads me to believe that they're just polishing him up because he ain't quite ready. That's my theory. I don't know what else it could be. So Cine completely missing in action on defense because the Vikings coaching staff says no thanks through three weeks. Winding down the show, my second to last surprise of defeating the Lions is the fruition of Kirk Cousins' response. We talked a lot last week about how terrible he played against the Eagles, and that if you are a fan of this purple team, you know, beyond the shadow of a doubt, Cousins is going to have at least one game where he looks like a 6th grader, that it looks like he doesn't belong playing football. And that happened against the Eagles. Unfortunately for his sake, it was on Monday Night Football, so the narrative continues. But we needed to see if he could bounce back, and he did. I mean, kind of twice, authoring 2 big game-changing and 1 game-winning touchdown pass in the 4th quarter, and that's what you needed to see. If he was going to look abysmal against the Eagles, it couldn't become a trend, because if you're going to pay a dude $35 million per season, if he's going to have those bad games, they better be few and far between. And 1 week response is, yes, it looks like the Eagles game was awful for him, and you could put it in a box and never talk about it again. Cousins responded. He wasn't flawless, he wasn't perfect against the Lions, but when the game was on the line, he went and won the damn thing, found KJ Osborne from 28 yards out, and the Vikings are atop the NFC North. So, we knew that Cousins would respond, because he always does. When he has those terrible games, he bounces back, and usually his months of October and November are just marvelous. However, it actually had to happen, so the fruition of Kirk bouncing back was a surprise in the sense that, whew, all right, he's not damned or doomed now after that Eagles loss. And then the final one that I have for surprise is that the Vikings running back depth, the plentitude of men in the RB room, were on display, and that was Alexander Mattison, because, unsurprisingly, Dalvin Cook was injured and he fumbled. That's standard operating procedure when he fumbles. It's also with an injury. Bless his heart. And now we don't know if he'll play against the Saints. It sounds like he's going to, because he's done this before with the sling, playing through pain. But when he went out, Alexander Mattison came in, and Alexander Mattison is like in the absolute prime of his career for a running back's age. Mattison looked wonderful. He scored the touchdown, was a nifty little run, and this is why Mattison was drafted in the first place in 2019 in the 3rd round, is that they knew that they had a commodity in Cook who got hurt. And so if you wanted to have that run-first offense back then, you better have a real humdinger of an RB2. And that's what Mattison is. Now, we talked during, June, July, and August that Madison could be a roster cut. That was false. He's on the team, and he made a difference against the Lions, helping win the game for Minnesota. But I think the fact that depth, there wasn't a noticeable drop-off from Cook to Madison. Cook will always be the more dynamic runner, especially because he can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's got a little bit more burst. But Madison does good things too. He can hurdle. He can jump out of a stadium hurdling guys. Cook doesn't do that. And he's more of a bowling ball type back. But the surprise was that when Cook went out, it wasn't Dalvin light. You gave the ball to Madison, and it didn't miss a beat. The Vikings offense kept ticking to the degree that it was ticking. And like I've said about 6 times now, they won the game. So that's what matters. Now, if Cook can't go on Sunday or thereafter, it would be Madison as the RB1. And I'm going to guess they'd bring up Chandler as RB2. I don't know if they trust Nwangu as, a ball carrier. We shall see. But I think it was also the fruition, kind of like Cousins bouncing back, is that this RB depth that we've bragged about for 7 months came and did its job. That's what Alexander Madison did. All right, so the sweet and salty bag of Irv Smith. That's number 1. I think that's here to stay. Garrett Bradbury holding up against the Lions, holding up in the season in general. The odd circumstance of the defense, which doesn't look very good to the outward eye, but when the game's on the line in the fourth quarter, they don't allow points. What more could you ask for? Justin Jefferson had his second quiet game in a row. We're not used to that. We'll see how he responds on another continent. Thielen's resurgence. We had to know for sure that he wasn't starting a performance age-related decline. He wasn't. He looked great against the Lions. Bada bing, he's back. Lewis Cine was absolutely missing in action on defense. They don't want to play him for some reason, so the mystery continues. Cousins bounced back like he usually does. We got to see it in action. The fruition of him playing good after the stinker in Philadelphia was a big deal because he's the QB1. And finally, the running back room that we thought was pretty damn deep is indeed deep because the Vikings didn't miss a beat when Dalvin Cook was injured. I'll be back with Josh Fry tomorrow. We'll do probably 7-8 minutes on the Lions and pivot to 7-8 minutes on the Saints as we approach week 4 and Skol, baby.